Welcome to Resilience in Life and Leadership with your host, Stephanie Olson. Well, I'm excited to introduce to you Kelli Calabrese. And Kelli kind of rocked my world a little bit. She thought she had it all together with a beautiful family, going to church, living in an estate home with all of the things until her husband of 24 years came home and said his commitment to their marriage was zero and he left. It took her to her knees and emptied her out. And for the first time, she experienced depression, anxiety, and even as a health and wellness professional for 34 years studying personal development, nothing prepared her for divorce. She went on a journey to heal and had to figure out how to stop the pain, and she did. And it took her over 3 years and tens of thousands of dollars in retreats, counselors, and all of the things. But not only did she survive, but she is now thriving. And today she empowers women to overcome the fear, grief, and rejection of divorce so they can create a fabulous bonus life that they can be excited about. Welcome, Kelli. Hello, and welcome to Resilience in Life and Leadership. And I am so excited to be here with Kelli Calabrese. Welcome, Kelli. I'm glad you're here.
Stephanie, thanks for having me. It is such an honor. I am happy and so excited to be here.
Yes, and I am excited to hear all about what you're doing, what you have experienced. And I must say, I would love to learn a little bit because I too have been through a few things. So I will just ask you to start and just share your story and how you got to be where you are.
Oh, well, thank you. I was born and raised in the New York, New Jersey, Northeast area. And when I was 13, I wrote in my diary, I will be an exercise therapist, really not
Oh,
even knowing what
wow.
that meant. I just knew I was really happy when I was running, dancing, jumping, softball,
Yeah.
cheerleading. I mean, anything I could do, there was this endorphin rush. I'm like, wow, what do people not get about this? This is awesome. And I also wanted to move away from a really strong family history of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, cancer, stroke, alcoholism. I mean, I looked at all that and went,
Yes,
ooh, I
yeah.
don't want anything to do with that. So I went on a quest pretty early and I did get 3 college degrees and I went on to
Wow.
get, 27 certifications all around fitness, health, nutrition, wellness, lifestyle. And really had a blessed career. I owned and operated health clubs. I managed corporate fitness centers and got to do writing, speaking, consulting, editing, spokesperson, media work, been on all the networks, spoke around the world and wrote best-selling books. And
Wow.
it was awesome. I mean, really, really incredible. And then I guess the big turning point for me more recently was about 4 years ago when my husband of 24 years came
Mm.
home and he said, my commitment to our marriage is zero. And he
Wow.
left. It
Wow.
floored me. So that was the major life event turning point for me that sent me on a new journey, still
Yeah.
revolved around health, but now I empower women to overcome the fear and rejection and guilt that goes along with divorce so that they can create a whole new bonus life where they can heal and do something amazing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. So I've got to ask, 24 years of marriage, and he comes home and says this. Did you have any idea at all?
I never thought that he would leave ever. That's why you
Wow.
marry them. You don't think I'm going to the altar. And
Yes.
looking back, it was a slow fade. I mean, I can't say that both of us were so happy, but
Yeah.
I just never thought he would leave. And our divorce was quick and he was re-engaged within a month of our divorce and remarried
Oh
pretty
my
quickly. So it
gosh.
was just like shock after shock, insults after insults.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a lot of unreasonable difficulty in a really short amount of time.
Wow. That's so I've been married 24 years. So that
Oh,
is truly, well,
congratulations.
thank you. But it's terrifying hearing something like that because you think, okay, things are fine. And, what in the world do you do when that happens? I mean, I'm assuming the shock was pretty overwhelming. And then you have to, get up off the floor and figure out what next, right?
Yeah, so shock is totally first. That's the start
Yeah.
of grief. And there's no real linear, beautiful order to this. It is messy, but it
Right.
includes denial, anger, sadness, depression. I mean, there's all these just ugly things that kind of you have to process through or not, but
Right.
eventually to get to a place of healthy readjustment. And then I like to take people even higher than they've ever been. Like you could be better than you ever knew before
Mm,
because of such a, horrific, traumatic thing that happens in your life. So yeah,
right.
I was on the floor, emptied out, just it was like a tornado came through, scattered my life everywhere and left this gaping, painful hole in my heart. And I
Yeah.
wanted to figure it out and I wanted to do it in a healthy way.
Yeah. So tell me what that looked like. What were those next steps?
Yeah, so I am by nature a knowledge person. So
Hmm.
I want to figure this out.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
lovingly went on what I call a sabbatical for about 3 years, where I really
Wow.
pressed in every single day because I had been studying personal development at this point for over 30 years. I had been a coach for 30 years, a
Right.
science person, understanding, mindset and none of what I knew prepared me for this. And I had loss in my life before. I'd lost my dad, my best friend to cancer. It
Mm,
wasn't like I was unfamiliar, but this was just my thing. So I went to divorce recovery. I went on the retreats. I went to the
mm.
conferences. I listened to the sermons. I was in the Bible studies. I read the books, listened to the TED Talks. I mean, I really did everything. In all, I hired about 21 experts
Yeah.
over the 3.5 years because I
Wow.
was determined to be well. So I had a breath expert, I had a grief expert, I
Mm,
went to the healing place, I had a divorce coach. I had a meditation coach. I mean, I was just seeking, like, okay, something has got to make me better because I need to hold up the mirror and say, okay, what was my part in that? Because it wasn't
yeah.
100% him and
Sure.
0% me. And I don't ever want to repeat this again. And I want to be the best version of myself. So I really did. I mean, I did deliverance.
Yeah.
I did energy work. I was just going for it.
Wow. Wow. So at what time, so I I'm stuck on the 24 years and just being blindsided. What do you say to your husband at that point? Because I would imagine the anger, the not having a choice in the matter would
Yeah.
just be so difficult.
So when you're married to someone and you come together, your souls are tied. So it is
Absolutely.
a soul tie. So when he said those words, we were actually in a counselor's office. So we had a discussion
Mm,
about taxes. It was in March and it was another, blow up about money kind of thing. And I just said, we need to go see a counselor because we can't every March have these same issues over money. And so we went to the counselor's office and the counselor said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to the marriage? And he said, Kelly, I think I know where you are. And he just to the side showed me his clipboard and he had the number 10 written on it. And I said, yes, I'm a 10. And
wow.
then he said to my husband, what's your number? And that's when he said 0. And when I tell you,
Unbelievable.
I could feel like a guttural tearing of my soul and
Yeah.
heart sitting there on the couch. I mean, it was a palpable, just tearing of the soul. So you can't separate the body, the mind, and the spirit. It was a shock.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay. And so what happens in that moment? What is the conversation like that, he's saying, you're saying 10, he's saying 0. I can't even imagine. I I can imagine what you're feeling, but what is he saying? What was his reasoning?
Well, the person who leaves has been thinking about it on average for 2 years.
Wow.
So
Okay.
the person who's blindsided is in this moment. But if you've had 2 years to think about this, you're already thinking like, okay, I'm going to tell my parents this. I'm going to say this at work. I'm going to move into this
You have
apartment.
a
I'm going
foot
to
out the
like
door.
2 years
Yep.
ahead. So
Yep.
he, was already like, he had processed it. So he was way ahead of me in that regard. So I think he was just postured to, receive whatever. His mind was made up already.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And these were all things I didn't know until I studied to become a divorce coach. And then they make so much sense. Like the knowledge really made sense to me because then you're like, oh, he'd been thinking about it maybe for 4 years. I don't know, but 2 years is the
Mm,
average. So it made sense that everything was very matter of fact for him. I'm getting an apartment. Blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I'm just like, what?
Mm, okay. So then what? You see all of these experts, is anything working?
It happened in stages. I would get little breakthroughs, but then there'd be another trigger. All of a sudden you see him on social media with a picture of a
Sure.
girl, and then, you think you're okay, and then, something happens with the kids, and it was just like trigger, trigger, trigger. So you think you're doing good, and then, he shows up at, one of the kids' events with his new girl and his new,
Mm,
grandson or whatever, and you're just like, whoa, like none of us are prepared for this. And
yeah.
so I kept getting knocked back down, and it was a lot. The kids were going into junior and senior year, literally like 2 days
Mm,
before this announcement to them. So that's a challenging age already. They've got their
right.
licenses and their jobs and their sports and boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever. So they had their own, anger and things to deal
Yeah.
with. And what I didn't know is that the stronger parent is the one who gets the worst of them. And that was me. I was always the
Right.
stronger parent. So it made no
Right.
sense because I was like, oh my goodness, feeling like such the victim, but I was always the strong one. So you get the ugly side of
Yeah.
that. So on top of trying to navigate your own, like, oh my goodness, where am I going to live and how am I going to keep my, professional clients going and
Right.
whatever you're dealing with, what they were going through.
Now, were they blaming anybody?
I wouldn't say they were blaming, but they were so hurt. Boys and girls typically do it different. So boys
Yeah.
usually get angry, and my son was angry, and
Hmm.
girls usually shut in and they
Right.
just close
Right.
down and they don't talk and they try and escape. We're all going to do something when we're in pain, and they were still
Right.
so young. And so that's another reason why I did the divorce coaching too, because when I got divorced, I actually had 8 friends who lived in my neighborhood of only 110 homes getting divorced at the same time. And
Wow.
so I was watching, when you're in pain, you're going to choose something,
Yep.
whether it's alcohol, another man,
Absolutely.
escape, travel. I mean, you can overexercise. You can take something
Yep.
good and just throw yourself into it because you're trying to stop the pain. And I really wanted to do something healthy. And I'm committed to help other women do something healthy. I don't know how you do this if you don't have physical health and strong faith, because I had both
Yes.
of those, but the emotional and the mental, and I was normally, I mean, I'm a super achiever. I've always, just had it together, ultra responsible, but my brain wasn't working.
Yes.
I
Right.
couldn't think. I just was like glazed. I couldn't remember. I mean, I almost had a photographic memory when I was younger,
Mm,
and I couldn't even remember why I walked into the room or what I was getting at the grocery store. So it was a real PTSD type of
yeah.
trauma.
Yeah. So, so how long would you say that it took you to really push through that traumatic pain? Because that really is what it is. It's trauma.
Yeah,
And dealing with that. And, I love that you talk about your faith, because really being able to press into something that's not you is so important. That's so
it
important.
is.
Yeah. So
Well,
how,
according to the research, 3 to 5 years is average. And obviously,
wow.
depending how long you were married and how much you really, your identity was in being a wife
Right.
makes a difference too. And if you left or if you were the one who was left. So there are things that differ. So on average, it's about 3 years. I probably was 3 to 3.5 years in. I remember being about a year in and going to lunch with a friend and asking him about how long, he was about 7 years in, until you felt normal. And he goes, normal?
Mm,
About 4 years. And I almost spit my tea out. I was like, 4 years. Like that just seemed like I'm not gonna make it. Like I'm gonna.
yeah.
And so the last part for me, and I still have my moments. I mean, I still have hard days. And in fact, right now he has COVID and was in the hospital. And
Oh,
my
wow.
heart, like I feel for him. So and not that I want him back in any way, but I'm concerned in a
Yeah.
concerned way. I'd say it was just over 3 years when the very last part of my healing was forgiveness. And even though I had said the words, I forgive him, but I
Mhm.
knew there was still like this bitter root that was still in there. And it was 4th of July weekend where I just sat down on the couch and I said, I am not moving. I am not getting up until I am better and I've forgiven. And I read a book called Forgiving Forward. And it was about forgiving myself
Yeah.
more than anything else because I felt like such a failure. And I
Yeah.
just sat there sobbing on the couch. Like I wouldn't forgive myself. Like I needed to hold my own feet to the fire and burn myself. This wasn't supposed to happen to me. And I was just holding myself up as such a failure. And
Mm.
so I sat there until, I kind of cried it out and just released it. And it was so powerful. And I do teach a lot on forgiveness. And,
Yeah.
I'm not minimizing anyone's pain. Horrible things happen. I work with women of divorce. There is just, horrific, abusive, I mean, terrible, but it's
Yes.
not about the other person. It's about you.
Yes.
And so if you can forgive yourself, there's an incredible freedom and power that comes with that.
So much. I forgiveness is a huge thing for me because I've been through divorce, I've been through domestic and sexual violence and all the things. And I heard someone say the other day that forgiveness cannot happen. You should not forgive until the person comes to you and says, I'm sorry, and is truly repentant. And I thought, what if the person that you want to hear those words from is no longer available or is not living? And what the worst thing that we can do for ourselves, for our physical and mental, emotional and spiritual health is hold on to that anger and bitterness because it just eats away at us. And so
Absolutely.
to say I forgive you and let it go, that is so much more about doing something for us than it is ever doing something for the individual who you're trying to
Completely.
forgive.
Yeah, Stephanie, I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. So true. I mean, when someone walks in the room who's bitter, you
Yeah.
can feel it.
Oh,
I mean, like you're like,
yeah.
whoa, what are they so angry about? I mean, they're
Yep.
defensive. And so whatever's in you, when you're squeezed, when the pressure of life happens, that's what's coming out of you. And if
Right.
it's all this, ugly stuff that's been pressed down, that's what's coming out. So the highest level of forgiveness is to forgive the person in the area that they offended you. So for example, in
Yeah.
my case, my ex-husband, former husband, and his new wife, I forgive him, but I bless their marriage. I speak
Hmm.
nothing but life over their marriage. I hope they're happy, they make it till death do they part, they complete each other, all of that. I have no animosity. I mean, I could say with 100% honesty, I harbor nothing bitter
That's
against
great.
him. I don't necessarily want to have dinner with him,
Yes.
but I don't have any ill words to say about him in front
Yeah.
of our kids. I mean, I speak life
I
over
love
him
that.
and the whole situation. And then even higher than that is to live what I call a pre-decided life of forgiveness. So
Mm.
first of all, I don't want to be easily offended. Why am I getting so
Right.
offended so easily? If someone cuts
Right.
me off, I have no idea what's going on in their life. Or call me and yells at me. I don't know what's going on in their day. And so
Yeah.
I'm just going to decide to forgive. And I'm not going to judge people to the best of my ability. And I'm going to look for a win-win. So it's just going through life with this posture of my peace is too expensive and
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it up. It is not worth it. So I'm going to be quick to apologize. I want to model forgiveness for my kids or friends or any future relationships that I have because it's not worth holding on to. It's a cancer. It will
It
kill
is.
you. It will physically turn into stomach aches and headaches and every other ache you can imagine, and eventually death. I mean, people can
True.
die from bitterness and heartbreak.
I have seen it happen, and it is so sad. And I think that what we have to remember is forgiveness is a choice. We make a choice, and sometimes that's a daily choice to say, okay, I forgive that person. God, I forgive that person. And that's sometimes just a daily decision that we make. And then I think we start to get to that place, especially when we are praying blessing over them and things like that. We start to get to that place where, no, really, there is no animosity. But I love that you said, but I don't want to eat dinner with them, because so often people think, well, if I forgive them, that means I need to spend time with them. I need to be, no, that um, the same mortar that keeps the bricks together also separates them.
Yes.
And so we have got to just honor that we can forgive somebody, but that does not mean we need to spend any time with them or have them in our
Absolutely.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to guard our hearts. We need
Right.
to have safe boundaries, and some people are not safe to be in our inner circle. So they
Yes.
might be fine in the outer circle, but
Right.
I don't need them in my intimate inner circle because
Yeah.
that doesn't contribute to my life goal and mission. And part of that is to have peace and joy and love. And
Yeah.
so I don't need to assault myself with that or set myself up for, failure or to be triggered. But I can just bless them from a distance. And no, there's definitely no rule. There's nothing that says you need to let a foolish, possibly harmful person back into your life
Right.
that's taking good things away from you at all. Do not get back. I mean, the first time, maybe it's a mistake, it's an accident, but now you're the fool if you stay and you
Right.
let that continue to happen.
Absolutely. So now, how did this turn into not only really forgiving yourself and recognizing that you were moving to a healthier place, but using it to help others?
Yeah, so one of my goals was to get two kids off to college successfully. And about a year and a
That's a
half ago,
challenge, right?
yes, by myself. And so a year and a half ago, I did that. And I came home from that 18-hour day of moving my second child
Wow.
out. She's got a horse and a dog and,
Oh my
just
goodness.
round trip. It was an 18-hour day. And I came home and I sat down and I was like, okay, now what? I really felt like I
Yeah.
had this blank slate, like two kids, empty nester, new season. And I really felt impressed on my heart to take the pain and use it for purpose. And I
Mm,
really feel like it wasn't me consciously because I wouldn't have done it. I did not want to
right.
be the divorce coach. I mean, literally, he had moved out before I even told my mom, my brother. I didn't say the word divorce for a year. I mean, I was
Wow.
so just silent and just embarrassed by it. So for me to go on the platform and be the divorce coach, I know it wasn't me. It was a calling.
Right.
So I sat down and I started writing a curriculum, taking together all the best parts that I used to help me heal over the 3.5 years. So I took the best of the best from all the counseling and the coaching and the retreats, and I put it into a program that I launched about a year and a half ago for women, and nothing against men. I'm not saying they
Yeah.
suffer any less. I don't hate men. I love men. But it was just my heart to help women because they're the highest in poverty as a
Hmm.
single woman, especially single moms. They're the highest in, just feeling the guilt and the
Yeah.
shame and the unlovableness and the
Yeah.
unworthiness. And too many women just don't get back up. I mean, your whole show is about resilience. So let's
Right.
get them back up and get them into their purpose and being a difference maker in the world.
Oh, I love that. So what does that look like? What does coaching look like? Do women come to you? What do they do?
Yeah, so right now everything is pretty remote because of our
Yeah,
circumstances
everything's
here in
pretty
the world.
remote. Yeah.
I love, live events and eventually we'll get back to that. But I have an 8-week program that anyone can start anytime. They can just go to intentionallyfabulous.com. They can get the program. It walks them through these 8 things, which are identity, forgiveness, renewing your mind, self-love and gratitude, purpose, divine health, abundant wealth, and then the last chapter is what I call joy, resurrection, and celebration. And that's about,
Mm.
visualizing this whole new amazing life. It comes with a healing guide, and each week has affirmations, meditations, visualizations, activations, and celebrations that have to do with
All the
those 8
shuns.
topics. Yes. So they can go and they can get that anytime. And then there's one level up from that course where I did 21 interviews with the experts who helped me when I was going through
Wow.
my divorce. So they
Wow.
get to be a fly on the wall to these interviews with my grief counselor, my breath therapist, my healing coach. Even someone did a negotiation and, just confidence building because I was not a master negotiator because you've got attorneys and all these
Yeah.
decisions to make.
Yeah.
And so if anyone's going through divorce or really even buying a car, you can use these tools. And then there's one more level above that where if they want one-on-one coaching with me throughout the 8 weeks, I have some spots open for that as well.
That is amazing because it really, I think when we're talking about something like divorce, it is so you said it, it's ripping that soul apart. And just the trauma that you go through and feeling a lack of value, feeling a lack of worth. Why doesn't he love me anymore? Why doesn't he want to be with me? And that's very challenging to get through.
Yeah, so the person who leaves feels guilt and shame for breaking up the family. The person
Mm,
who's left, they deal with massive rejection. And that was me. I mean, I would be just in bed and I would sit up in the middle of the night, rejected, rejected. I
yeah,
mean, it was just, and then my kids were rejecting me because, they were leaving and they just, like I said, it was ugly. It
yeah,
just was.
yeah.
Thankfully now, I mean, my son just had dinner with me. It's just, it took time. We all
Oh, I
had to work
bet.
through it.
Yep,
But you're a praying mama and you're there for them and you set up those boundaries and you just have to be a safe place for them, but also you can't let them take advantage of you either. So those were, some of the steps that we had to go through. But
yeah,
knowing what I now know, I can help people get through it so much quicker. I mean, it still
yeah.
takes time, but it's not just time because
Right.
you see people years later and they're still depressed. They're
Yes.
still holding on to
Bitter
the
and
old
mhm,
relationship, or they keep repeating, same guy, different face, where, it's the same addicted guy or,
right.
poverty guy or whatever. So we break the cycles and we get them to a healthy place where they really are healed and whole and their confidence in themselves is a lot higher. They're not a victim anymore. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we can do it faster.
That's great. So do you work with women who have both um, had the person leave and want to
Yes.
be divorced, want to be the one who is initiating the divorce?
Yes, absolutely both. And you know what? It used to be more men, and the number one age for divorce is 30, which is, so sad. The
Wow.
second age for divorce is 50,
Okay.
which is, I'm in that group. I actually got
Yeah, you're
served on my,
killing me here,
yeah,
actually. 24th. I'm going to go talk to my husband as soon as we leave. So,
yeah. So I got served on my 49th birthday. So I
oh
was in
Lord.
that
Yeah.
50 group. And it was more, it was about 50-50 at the start of COVID. Now, 78% of divorces are being filed by women. So it's interesting how COVID
Wow.
has shifted things. And part is because they thought, okay, the man's going to come home. He's going to be in the house. He's going to help with the cooking, the cleaning, the kids, and the groceries, and the blah, blah, blah. And that didn't necessarily happen. And this whole pandemic made people really look at their lives and
Yeah.
say, am I happy? Am I fulfilling my purpose? Is
Yeah.
this what I want out of life? And it's more women right now. So doesn't matter who filed it, you still need the same things. You still need
Right.
to love yourself. You still need to, live in gratitude, forgive yourself. So it doesn't matter which way, it goes both ways. Sometimes infidelity, could be the woman, could
Sure.
be the man. So there's all kinds of different unique circumstances, but the principles are the same.
Okay. So when you're dealing with something like infidelity, especially on the woman's part, so the woman is the one who had the affair, wants a divorce. How does that change the conversation if that because that is very different than maybe the man having the affair filing for divorce, or even the man having the affair and the woman filing for divorce. How does that conversation shift in the coaching?
Yeah, they still need to forgive themselves. They still need to renew their mind about the past and get
Mhm.
present and get excited about the future. So they still have to get that confidence to get back up and move on. So if they've been knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, beating themselves up over having the affair and they're carrying shame or guilt or
Sure.
whatever it is, I want, to get them to hold up the mirror and really shine truth on what's going on
Yeah.
so we can look at, and I'm not a licensed psychologist, I'm a licensed divorce coach, but to really get them to take responsibility,
Mhm.
own what their part was, but then to release it in the past and let's get present. Let's breathe, let's get present, and let's focus on putting one foot in front of the other. So I ask them really good open-ended questions that get them to think differently because
Yeah.
everywhere you are in your life right now is because of your beliefs. Your beliefs created a thought created an action, the action created,
Right.
a habit, the habit became the character, and the character is the identity. So
Right.
are you identifying as someone who's an adulteress? Like we don't want to walk
Yes.
around
Right.
life like that. So just looking at where is your identity. So it's still really all the same kind of work.
That's amazing. So have you worked with anybody, and I'm sure you have, but who is just not really self-aware about what their responsibility might have been in the relationship? Because you're right, you made the comment, it's never 100% to 0%
Right.
responsibility. And although, when we're dealing with something like abuse, an abuser has 100% responsibility, absolutely. But when we're dealing with a divorce, that's usually something where two people have contributed something. Um, have you worked with someone who has thought, gosh, nope, I had nothing
Yes.
responsible for that? Okay.
Yes, I have. And if you knew my story, like you would cry for me. You would say, "Oh my goodness, seriously? He left? Like that was
Yes,
ridiculous that he left.
yes.
That was just crazy." But I had to hold up the mirror. I chose to hold up the mirror, and I realized that I was an enabler. And I
Mm,
realized that I was a perfectionist. And what happens is if you're able to look at the relationship, you usually wind up each getting in a different ditch.
yeah,
So I was married to someone who was irresponsible and foolish, so I became hyper responsible and controlling. So now you've got
sure.
two people in a different ditch, and then I'm, getting more resentful, and I'm enabling him to sit on the couch and watch baseball, and I'm out there,
Mm,
fighting and doing all the work. And so you have to look at, okay, how did we get here? Because we loved
right.
each other. We went to the altar. We didn't think this was going to happen. So where did it glitch? Where did it malfunction? What was I believing that wasn't true that got me to this place? So
Yeah,
everyone has something to contribute in a marriage, even if there was abuse. There was, and
right,
again, I'm not minimizing or condoning in any way. I'm not saying it's easy to leave. It is all difficult,
right,
but I believe I'm not worthy. And so I stay here and I get emotionally or physically or mentally abused. So that's a lie. That's a false thing because
right,
I am worthy.
right.
So yeah, even in my own situation, I could easily have pointed the finger and said it was all him, but after a while I was like, huh, I bet I was kind of tough to live with being a perfectionist. I
Mm.
didn't know I was a perfectionist because you don't know.
No,
And sometimes your friends might maybe they're not telling you or you're just in denial about things, but I
right.
was a very much a perfectionist. It is hard to live with a perfectionist, but now I'm not anymore. And it's so
Mm,
freeing for me and my kids and it's beautiful, but I had to
yeah.
figure that out through the struggle.
Have you ever worked with couples who might be on the verge of divorce, who might be interested in, well, maybe we're headed in that direction, but ultimately don't want to go there?
Yes, my goal is always first to save the marriage. I mean, that's always
Mm,
the first thing. If it is at all
yeah,
possible, that's the first thing that we do. If it's not too far gone or if it's still safe and it's, not an abusive situation. I
right.
actually worked with a woman where she wanted to leave. I mean, she came in and she's like, I can't stand to be in the room with him. Like, I've moved to the guest room. I don't even want to look at him. I hate his tattoos. I mean, she was like, I'm John. He'll never be the man. And so I worked with her. And I said, let's just work on
Mm,
you. Because either way, whether you stay
right.
with him or not, she's already, thinking about another man, which I don't
Yeah,
recommend, running into another relationship right
no,
away. I mean, that might be part of some people's healing down the road, having another loving relationship, but you got to get, kind of further along.
yeah,
Otherwise, you just repeat.
right.
And so I worked with her on her. And this was 3 years ago, maybe now. And
Mm.
I love seeing their Facebook pictures. They're just so happy and they're
Oh,
in love and they're
wow.
together and they're on vacation. I mean, they're almost inseparable. It's
Oh, I love
unbelievable
that.
the shift, but it was about working with her on her, the things that she didn't see, that maybe she was being unreasonable about or had
Mm,
expectations that, were just unreasonable. But the bottom line is the number one need that everyone has, every person that's breathing wants to be loved
yeah,
unconditionally. It's just universal. I want to be loved for who I am. I don't want you to change me. I don't want you to coach me. I don't
yeah,
want you to tell me I'm broken. And no one human can meet that need completely. It's just
right.
not even,
That's
no
right.
10 humans, no 100 humans. I
Yep.
mean, it's good to have community. I mean, we're designed to be here with people because I've got girlfriend groups and I've got friends who are funny and I've got friends who just have such great wisdom and,
Yeah.
I have friends who are adventurous. And so I get like pieces from different friends and, it's so fun and so beautiful. And I look for the good in everyone, but no one person is going to love me completely the way I need to be loved. And
Yeah.
that's where faith comes in. So
Yeah.
that's the number one universal need. The number one need that men have is to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want. And the number one need that women have is to be secure.
Yeah.
So what happens is, looking back from this 10,000-foot view is once a woman starts feeling insecure in her man, so she thinks, well, I think he's spending money, or I think he's drinking on the way home from work, or
Mm.
I think he's looking at porn in the basement. Now she feels insecure. She starts disrespecting him. He starts getting disrespected. He starts doing more reckless things, making her feel
Yeah.
yet less secure. And now
It's
you've got
cyclical.
this ugly cycle of hurt
Mm-hmm.
people hurting people. So, it goes back to communication. It goes back to, continue dating each other, get to know each other. There's so much that goes into having a great marriage because you're taking two very different people, even if you're similar. I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at the statistics for people to get divorced, I was like the least like, I had the lowest. If you look at, we were from the same
Mm.
place. We're both Italian. We grew up Catholic. I mean, if you look at all the
Wow.
things, education and age and, the size of your ring, the size of your wedding, like all the things they measure, I shouldn't have gotten
Yeah.
divorced.
Yeah.
So if you take people that are very different cultures, different ages, it makes it more challenging. So either way, you've got two people who need to come together and be united. And again,
Yeah.
for me, that's where the faith is such an important part of that connection. Because if
Right.
you if you rely on two fleshly people to just duke it out, it's going to be, a
It's not
constant
going to
struggle.
work well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. That is amazing. So today you're coaching people. You're obviously doing incredible work, and you're healthy, you're happy. How did your kids come through it? Um, I know that has got to be so challenging for children. And how long did it take them to just really recover?
Yeah, I would say it's even more recently. So it's been about 3+ years for all of us. And again, we all did it a little bit differently. And I
Yeah.
did get help. I mean, I was every day. I was
Yeah.
I went a counselor, I was whatever, and they really navigated a lot of it on their own. So
Mm.
I think they're doing well. And they were collegiate athletes, which is not easy
Mm.
to do, especially during COVID. I mean, COVID hit and made everything
Yes.
so much harder. So I think considering they're doing well, the good seeds are in them. So
Yeah.
the core values are planted in them. And again, I'm a praying mama, so
Yeah.
I'm just believing for the best outcomes. And this is their journey. And at this season, they're 20 and 21. I'm here to support. I'm here for wisdom if they ask for it. I'm their biggest
I
cheerleaders.
love that.
And they've got to figure some things out on their own at this point too. So I would say there's a lot of great things in them. They're talented, they're
Mhm.
hardworking, they have so many good qualities. And some things are going to have to work through. They're both in relationships, and it seems to be going well.
That's
So
good. That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, they
So
believe in family.
I love that. I love that. What would you say? So I have two different scenarios. What would you say to a woman who is considering divorce and really struggling and just not knowing what to do? And then what would you say to a woman who is who's fearful that she's going to be walking into a possible divorce, that her husband might have some sort of, that she has an inkling that her husband might want to leave her?
Yeah. I mean, you need to have the critical conversations. You really do. And trying to do this alone is like taking an aspirin when you have cancer. It's like putting
Hmm.
a band-aid when your arm's been amputated. You can't just do, just this small thing and hope that things work out. You really have to take it seriously. You really have to commit to it. You really have to, do a deep dive. And
Yeah.
I know there's a stigma for some people still with counseling. There's not for me. I'm like, sign me
Mm-mm.
up. If someone can, like, what kind of therapy do you do? Like,
Yeah.
I'll try a session. I'm
Big fan
open.
of therapy. That's
Yeah, I mean,
right. Yeah.
anything that can help with healing, energy
Yeah.
work, I'm open for it. I go to a bunch of different people and just see, and everyone's got something different that helps. Like this one really cut off that connection to my former husband that I could
Yeah.
feel that physical connection. So anyway, get help, however that looks for you. Divorce coaches are out there, and it doesn't mean that you're already divorced. You just could be heading in that
Mhm.
direction, but they can help you to keep your marriage together. And I would work on becoming the best version of you. So,
Yeah.
physically, financially, emotionally, relationally, socially, professionally, just in every way, so that if that blow up does happen, it's not a massive, just carnage where, okay, well, my
Right.
money was in order. I've got a support group of friends. My job is stable. I've got equity in the house, whatever
Yeah.
needs to happen so that it's not, a massive explosion. But get your life in order. It's just a good idea. And the more you get
Yes.
yourself and your life in order, the better shape you're in either way. Believe for your
Absolutely.
marriage to work. I would definitely get an outside person to come in because you've already done both of this alone together, and this is where it's gotten you. And if you want to go to a higher level, I mean, you
Yeah.
might be able to, get a workbook and see there's some really great couples workbooks out there on love and respect. Get into a church group, get into a life group, something like that could be really helpful.
I love that. Well, and I think too, one of the things I'm hearing, and I this is so important, we have to be humble enough to look at ourselves and say, maybe I need to do something different here. And that's hard to do. It's hard to look at yourself and make those changes that might be necessary to better any of your relationships.
Yeah, and it is so freeing when you do it because we just don't realize how we are. I mean, some people are
Yeah.
chronic liars, and to live like that is just an
Yeah.
awful place to live. But I had an accountability partner about 3 years ago, and we got together and he said, Kelly, you can never lie to me. And I was like, first, I was like, you don't even know me. Like, I'm not a liar. I don't lie. But I just got even more tuned in to never lying. And you don't even
Mhm.
realize the little things like, oh, yeah, I was late, it's traffic, whatever. No, I didn't leave 5 minutes early. Like I didn't
Yeah.
allow the time. And now I'm just honest. And to go out there and live brutally honest is such a freeing thing. And people don't even know how to handle it when you're
Yeah.
honest.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I mean things like, integrity and honesty and trust and just building those core values, you're going to attract what you put out. So if you're a
Mhm.
person who lives loving people, connected, confident, aware with great core values and you celebrate life and you have vision and you're healthy and you're peaceful, that's what you're going to attract. But if you're bitter and angry and
Mhm.
depressed, and that's what you're going to attract. So we have a choice.
Yeah.
So hopefully people choose, to take the high road.
Wow. So what does resilience mean to you?
Yeah. So the very lowest form of energy is victim. That's where life is happening to me and there's nothing I can do about it. The highest level of energy is love. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self control, all that, just the highest possible vibration. And the tipping point between victim and love is resilience. So
Mhm.
it's being knocked down 10 times and getting up 11. It's when you've had so many things take you down, but you chose to get back up
That's
again. You
right.
have that confidence. And my background is, in physiology and fitness. So it could start with your body language where you're just like, okay, head up, shoulders back, deep breath in, chest out. And from this posture, I can't really be depressed. And now
Mhm.
I'm going to get into gratitude because that is a superpower. And about a year and a
Yes.
half ago, I committed to filling a page every single night with gratitude and not going to
Mm.
bed until the page was full.
Oh, I love
And it
that.
yeah, at first it started out really mechanical. It was like, okay, I
Mhm.
took my vitamins, I walked the dog, and but then I was going throughout my day looking for things to be grateful for because I
Wow.
wanted to fill that page. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, nobody had the day that I had. I got to talk to Stephanie today. Like, oh my goodness, like well, how blessed am I? And who knows who might
Oh,
hear this? And that's amazing. And so the gratitude is part of the confidence because when you go
yeah.
throughout your day looking to receive good things and to give good things, it changes your resilience. You start to get the plane off the ground and you're like, okay, now
Yeah.
we're flying, now we're soaring. And resilience is awareness, not sticking your head in the sand, but
Yeah.
really being conscious and intentional and aware of, okay, where do I need to be resilient? What's the most important urgent things that if I focus on these things could really be the difference maker? I can't do everything. Man, life has never been coming at us faster than right now. There's
Yeah.
so much stress, so much intensity. But if I could just be resilient about the important things that would make a difference, then that would help me to switch my energy to these higher levels.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that. So, where, Kelly, can we find you?
You know what? I would love, Stephanie, if people emailed me. I answer every single email. So my email is Kelly with an I at Kelli Calabrese, CALABRESE.com. And just, let me know what you maybe heard on the podcast today that inspired you or what challenges you have. And I will definitely get back to you. They could go to intentionallyfabulous.com, which is where they can see about the single redefined, is what I call the program.
Mm.
Facebook is my name, and I have a private group that is for women where we talk about the hard things and we laugh and support each other. And that's also called Intentionally Fabulous on Facebook. So any women thinking about divorce, separated, divorce, even 7 years post-divorce,
Yeah.
come in. It's a great group, and people just need community and love right now.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And we will make sure to put all of that in our podcast notes so people can find you. And I have just loved talking to you. This has been so much fun. And you've got an amazing story and you're doing amazing things with it. I love it when people take what, life hit them right in the badoosh and they take that and move forward and really help other people, and that's exactly what you're doing, Kelly. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And honestly, thank you for bringing this program to the world. I love anything that has to do with resilience. I'm thankful we connected, and I'm excited for you and what your show's going to do.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad you were here, and thank you for listening in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening. Please share with anyone you think will benefit from this podcast.